Welcome back. I am just thrilled to be in this season of Thanksgiving and gratitude and have the opportunity to introduce amazing people, as always, doing amazing things. But in this case, for this show, we're really talking about being grateful for life in general, and how does that look for so many of us? So Patti and Vic Caroli, for me, are amazing examples of literally living your best life every single day, staying open, staying curious, and saying yes to every adventure. So let me welcome Patti and Vic Caroli to the show. Thank you so much for being
Hi,
here.
Lauren. Thanks for having us.
I'm really excited to have you. I mean, honestly, I think we all had that moment when we first met and said, have we known each other forever?
Yeah, yeah. It was
And
like that.
it's one of those when I think when you find your people and people who share your philosophy as a daily practice of just being grateful and open and approaching the world uh, with that beginner's mind, right? Just staying open to it all. But you both have achieved a level of fame. You're in the acting world. I would
in
call
a
it
small pool.
maybe so, maybe so. But Patti, I want to start with you, just girls first. You know, you both have incredible, deep, interesting backgrounds. And so tell us a little bit about, like, just bring me from, birth until today, not too much.
You have 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. 5 words.
Well, I was, you really don't want me to go back to birth. You really
I
want.
don't need you to go back to birth.
Okay,
No,
let's
but
go back to my beginnings at work. Shall we
perfect.
start with that?
Perfect.
So I started life as a secretary in an advertising agency. And if you've ever seen the show Mad Men, I was Peggy Olson, actually, because I did start that way and worked my way up the chain. Now, I was heading for a career in account services, but along the way, I saw this sign up in the coffee room of a guy who worked at our company who was offering a copywriting course at his apartment for only 12 students. And it was $150 for 6 weeks. And I thought, oh God, that's a lot of money. And but friends encouraged me to take his writing course. And I remember when the first night he gave us an assignment to do for the following week. And before I left his apartment, I said, Ed, his name was Ed Butler, I'll never forget him. I said, Ed, if I really stink at this, can I back out of the, he says, you can take up to 2 classes and back out for a full refund. I said, okay, thank you. I came in the following week with my assignment, and he said to me, quote, Patti, if you don't start writing for a living, you are wasting your life. That was the big break for me, because I'm not a good pat yourself on the backer. I kind of knew I was a good writer, but it's not something I would admit out loud because maybe I wasn't, it's like I always had that fear. But and because he worked at the same company as I did, he went around telling everybody, I want you to meet my star student. So eventually I put together a spec book, and it took a while for the creative director to give me a shot, because he said, everybody thinks they're a writer. And I said, okay, can you just give me a chance? When he first looked at my spec book, he was like, yeah, it needs work. And he gave me some feedback, and then every night there were no computers then, so I stayed at the office every night after doing my regular job, which at the time I was an assistant account executive on the Payne Weber account, and I would work until midnight if I had to, and I polished and I did. And finally one day he said to me, you ready to show me your book again? I said, yeah. He said, 8:30 my office tomorrow. I stayed that night and made sure. This time he looked at it and he said, okay. And next thing I knew, still more time went by, but then he popped into my office one night when I was working late again. And he said, hey, still want to be a writer? I said, yeah. He said, poof, you're a writer. I'm like, what? And then I became a starter. He says, now you're not going to get the best assignments. I didn't care what I had to do. I wrote coupon copy for packages of chicken at first. I mean, but I did the best coupon copy you could ever imagine. And that's always been my philosophy, by the way. Whatever your project is, if it's the tiniest project, if it's a small space ad, if it's a TV commercial, if it's a radio commercial, give it the same bigness, give it all your heart and soul that you would give to the biggest thing. And I kind of made a reputation for myself, I think, in that sense, because I was really dedicated, and I turned out to be good at it. So
Yeah.
And sometimes the biggest lesson here is for all of us who have the opportunity to influence someone where we see talent and they may not see themselves clearly, the opportunity to really instill that confidence for them to move forward. I love how it took one person and then one more to really show you that you could
I
do
could
this
do it.
and you ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, and then that eventually I had an inside office, then I had an office with one window, and then we moved to Connecticut and I took a job there and I had an office with two windows, and then I was promoted to
You were vice
vice president and
Isn't that
associate
funny
creative
how
director. So
we equate
yeah,
success in your case with numbers of windows? I
you
remember
know,
as a child, my mother's parents had one bathroom in their house. My father's parents had two bathrooms and we had three. We
Oh,
were rich.
yes. Oh my God, were you rich?
So bathrooms for me, windows for you. I totally get
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So that's
Thank
where we
you.
began. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to pick up with the next steps in a minute, but let's hear from Vic because you also have quite an interesting beginning.
well, I'm an actor, and when I was a kid, um, we did a little play in the seventh grade. I forget what the name of it was. And I remember going up to the teacher after. I even remember her name. Her name was Lois Nicholson. And I said, "Gee, Mrs. Nicholson, that was fun. When are we going to do another one?" And it wasn't until high school that we got to do another one. So I did plays in high school. And I went to a very big high school. There were 5,000 students in my high school, 900 in my graduating class.
Wow.
And after I would do a play, kids that I didn't know would stop me in the hall and say, "Hey, um, I saw a play last night. Aren't you the guy that was?" Um, yeah, and I was kind of, yeah, I was afraid of, oh God, if you kind of hate it. He said, "You were really good." Oh, uh, thanks. And then the senior year, we did a senior variety show, and we had loads of talent. Hey, with all those kids, you're going to have a lot of talented dancers and singers and musicians and what have you. And I played the ringmaster, and I had a little spot up there in the gym, and I had the red coat and the top hat and all that. And afterwards, we're walking out. I was 17 years old, and we're walking out, and a man, an adult, who I did not know, he was standing in front of me, and he said, "The young man, I would like to get your autograph." And I looked around like, who are you talking to? And he said, "No, you, I'd like to have your autograph." I said, "Sir, I'm just a 17-year-old kid. I said, well, why would you want my autograph?" And he said, and I quote, "Because someday you're going to be famous and I will have your autograph." And I just, I mean, my mouth just fell open. So I signed this program.
And you believed it.
And that was, well, no, I thought, well, I really like doing this kind of thing. I like performing. It's fun and I can do it. So the way I look at it is there are signposts. Now, if there's a road that you want to go down and there aren't any signposts on it, you might want to pay attention to that fact. But if you get little signposts, and I was doing summer stock one summer. I was about 19, I guess, 19 or 20. And every Tuesday night was an opening night of a new play. And so I was in all plays except this one week. I was not in the play. It was my week to work in the box office. So I'm in the box office and I'm taking orders. And I picked up the phone. This one lady called and she said she recognized my voice and she said, "Oh, you're that." Oh, and she said, what play are you going to be in this week?" And I said, "Well, ma'am, actually, I'm not in play this week." And she said, "Oh dear." I said, "What?" She said, you're not in the show this week?" I said, "No, no, no, I'm off this week." But I said, "But I'll be in the show, next week." She said, "Well," and again, quote, "My husband and I drive 110 miles round trip every week to see you. And if you're not in the play, we just don't feel it's worth coming to see."
Wow.
Now, again, I'm 19 and I'm thinking,
It's a lot of responsibility.
maybe there really is something here to, So I kept following it when I graduated from college with a fine arts degree in theater. I just got on a train and went to New York and started doing these little showcase productions that they paid subway fare. That's all they paid. But I got people started getting interested in me, and then I got my draft notice. And then when let's see if I can jump here. I got my draft notice, and I went in the Army for 2 years, got out of the Army, and then I went back to Chicago, which was my home of record, and I got my equity card as a stage manager. And from there, I started doing equity theater in Chicago. And then I met an agent who said to me, "Young man," I was 26 at the time. She said, "Young man, have you ever done voiceover?" And I said, "What's that?" Because in those days, this is 1968. In those days, nobody knew what voiceover was. Everybody does now. But then that was an unheard of term. And so she told me what it was, and she gave me a piece of copy. So she said, "Read this out loud to me." So I did. She said, "Do you have a tape recorder at home?" I said, "Yeah." I had these little 3-inch reel tape recorders. She said, "Go home and read a bunch of ads out of a magazine for me and bring me the tape." So I did. And she started taking this tape around to advertising agencies in Chicago. And in 3 months, I was making a living doing voiceover.
That's amazing.
And the rest is history, as they say. And now I continued to do theater until I was in my, I guess, early to mid 40s. I guess I did regional theater, I did dinner theater, I did some stock, I did a lot of theater. I do get a pension from equity. I mean, I did a lot of theater, but my main source of income was voiceover. So that's basically my story.
And while we're with your story, let's keep going on that, because your big break, your career jump, I mean, people know you today for something very distinct, and it's been an awful lot of fun to dig into that voice that if a lot of our viewers could just close their eyes and listen to you speak, they would know who you were.
Well, that's actually very true because my voice was in the 70s and 80s, particularly maybe even the early 90s. My voice was everywhere. I was the original voice of the Transformers. I narrated the original movie, the Transformers movie. I narrated the cartoon show. I did most of the toy commercials. I was just everywhere. I did all the CoverGirl commercials for about 12 years.
Yeah.
Monday Night Football for about 15 years. I was just everywhere. And a lot of people have said, "Your voice is familiar to me. I've heard your voice before." I said, "Yeah, you probably have." Now, 15-year-olds haven't, or 25-year-olds haven't, but people your age and younger, people who are like in their late 40s, early 50s, they're the people that really locked into the Transformers. That was the big deal for them.
Yeah.
And I go to the conventions and they line up for my autograph and stuff like that, which is very nice. It's very it's very humbling in a lot of ways because
It's humbling, but
I
it
don't
really,
see myself as a celebrity. I really don't, but they
but
do.
it's fun to know because voice has such an emotional connection for us. Literally, when we hear voices, we think we know you. It's just the same as I've seen you. Who are you? But I really want to share with our audience that they can get you. They can find you to deliver a message, can't they?
Well, they can, yeah. If they go on Cameo, I am on Cameo, and they can hire me, as it were, to deliver a birthday message or an anniversary message or a get lost. I just found a new guy message, whatever.
Have you actually done one of those? That's kind of
No, no,
cool.
I never done one of those.
Not yet.
I could do the phone their phone intro or whatever. But yeah, they can do that.
So that's cameo.com. I had never known about that, but I had so much fun exploring it. I want to make sure we share that with our audience.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean everybody's on. I mean, my God, I mean, and some people. I only charge $200, but Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful on Shark
Shark
Tank,
Tank.
he charges $6,500
For a greeting?
for for agreement. But
But I think he
Bless
gives
him.
to charity. I think his
he probably gives us
Yeah.
the show. I mean, he's a billionaire.
Of course.
It's like
Of course.
$5
But it's still a
billion.
fun place for our viewers to go and look at something that maybe they didn't know existed, like I didn't know, and it's an awful lot of fun. Patti, you went from your writing I mean, you've kind of kept writing, but you added a pretty big leap to your writing. And so now you are actually stage acting. How
And
did
and may I say that for years, even when we were up in Connecticut, I used to say, Patty, come on, you need to be on the stage. Look at you. You're beautiful. You are funny. And she was very comfortable in front of an audience because she and her art director partner had to make presentations to clients. She used to call it the dog and pony show. So she was very comfortable with that. I said, you should be on the stage. You should. No, no, no. I said, no, I'm a writer. Then we came to Florida and
So I finally took a shot. And I went on a few auditions and didn't get anything. And then finally I landed one. It was a small little part in the show Mame. And I got to play a a Russian
hairdresser.
hair salon owner. And for my audition, do I know how to do a Russian accent? No. But what did I pull out of my butt?
Boris and Natasha.
Boris and Natasha from cartoons.
Boris and Natasha.
Boris and so
Bullwinkle?
I did that, and I got the part. And it was only 12 lines, but I always tell people, but it was the 12 lines that will change theater forever, So, and then
The other thing that's going to change theater forever is your actual stage show that you also co-wrote.
yes,
Just because of the title. This is one of those things I would create a journal with this on the cover and blank pages inside because the title is so good. Tell us about Laugh, Cry, Pee, Repeat.
Laugh Cry Pee Repeat came about because a woman named Beverly Dahlstrom, who ran a theater down in Marco Island, said to Carol Fenstermacher, a pretty well-known local playwright here, she said, Carol, somebody ought to write a show that's like Love, Loss, and What I Wore, but for older women, with little chat lines and monologues and stuff that pertain to older women. So Carol said, okay, I'll take that on. And then she realized she couldn't do it alone. So she recruited Natalie King and me, and the three of us collaborated on Laugh, Cry, Pee, Repeat. And we each took different topics, like the pee part is, peeing when you weren't intending to, or we talk about weight loss, and we talk about, we have some serious topics too, like people that are not allowed to see their grandchildren, for example. I found out that's a big thing right now, sadly. And dating for the first time after
a long marriage.
Yeah, after being divorced or without a husband for 25 years and suddenly being in the dating game. So so we took that on, and Carol directed it. First, we did it in Marco Island because Beverly was the one who had instigated this whole thing. And then we had a chance to do it at the Naples Players this year. And
the Naples Players, by the way, is one of the top two or three community theaters in the entire country. They just did a $21 million renovation
it's a
of a
beautiful,
community theater.
yeah.
It's
Sounds
gorgeous.
like a
It looks like
destination.
it looks like a Broadway.
It does.
Looks like a Broadway theater. It's an amazing, amazing place.
And her show, the laugh copy repeat, I call it her show, but
It's our
it's their show. Was, and I say this really objectively, was the absolute laugh riot hit of the season.
we had sold out houses every
Every
night
night.
to the point where they had to extend the run
Yeah.
for a week
They do.
so that we could accommodate everybody. So
You are right up there with Billy Joel and Elton John, baby.
Well, it just hasn't. The only
We
thing
are
about it is,
extending the show.
yeah, it just hasn't been published yet. That's the
Yeah,
only,
that would
it's
be,
very
Well,
difficult to get something
Yeah.
published.
We'll put that out there. I want to come back to you, Vic, for a minute, because I want to talk about your leap, which is so interesting and something people can see, is your digital photography.
Yeah, I've been taking pictures for many, many, many years. My father had he had a movie camera, which I actually have on the shelf back there. It's an old Bell and Howell wind up 8mm camera. It's about 100 years old or whatever. But then, oh gosh, I don't know how many years ago, a friend of mine introduced me to Photoshop when Photoshop was in much earlier stages than it is now. And I thought, oh, look at this. This is really interesting. So I got interested in Photoshop and I stayed with it. And I took a quick class in it just to get the basics. And then through tutorials and just kind of figuring out things in my head, I got to the point where I can take ordinary picture. Sometimes something comes out of the camera on my screen. I put it up on my screen the way it came out of the camera, and I just don't like it at all. It doesn't look right. I like the composition, looks nice, but it's dull or dun dun dun. So I found ways that I can brighten it up. I also found ways that I can combine parts of this picture that I took and parts of this picture I took.
this is the magic that I love.
This is I do.
This is just amazing.
And I make just things that people look at. I have a gallery right next door over here. I had a one-man show down in Marco Island several years ago, and I had a bunch of things printed on metal. When they printed on metal, they really bang, they pop out. And each one of them is 3 feet wide, so they're pretty good size. And I lost my train of thought here.
My train
Our world.
a long time ago. Don't look at me.
You are not alone. You're in such good company.
Oh, I know. I know what it was. People come in and look and they say, "Oh, wow, where did you take that?" And I think, first of all, how can you even say that? Because it's obvious that that place doesn't exist. But anyway, I don't say that. I said, no, I didn't take it. I made it. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, you see that background doesn't really exist. I made that background by doing it. And then those trees are, I either made the trees in Photoshop or I took an existing tree that I had taken a picture of, but I pulled this out and I explained, to try to explain to them how I made the picture. And they're really interesting images, but they're not photographs. They're images.
But they do feel like photographs, and having spent a fair amount of time on the website just because they're so interesting,
Yeah.
it reminded me in my parents' apartment, on the wall hangs two beautiful portraits of my mother's grandparents. And of course, they were earliest day photographs, but then they were retouched by hand to add in the jewelry and to make them look like royalty of some kind, to make it a little more regal. I look at that and I look at what you're doing and how the evolution of time and technology have allowed for things like what you're doing, and that I think people would love to see it. Where can they see your work?
Well, if they go to Caroli, Caroli photo.com,
No, photo art.
CaroliPhotoArt.com. I know it's kind of long. I should have
Is that
come up with something better than that. But CaroliPhotoArt.com, that's the website.
Sometimes the most obvious is the way to go. Caroli Photo Art. We're going to put that up on the screen so people know how to get
Oh, cool. Thank
you.
you. Thank you for that.
And I know we are going to come back and continue to visit with Patti and Vic, because there's one more project that I really want them to share, and we'll be right back.